Good morning, everybody. We're talking about fruit of the Spirit this week. Yesterday we talked about love, and we talked some out of John 15. Was some of the verses I read to you, but today we're talking about peace, joy, and peace. And joy is a deep and abiding inner rejoicing, which was promised to those who abide in Christ. If you remember, like I said yesterday, we read out of John 15. And in John 15, Jesus is talking, and he's saying that that he's the vine and we're the branches, because we're in the branches, we're in Christ, we're able to bear much fruit. So, and then he goes on to say that even as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. And he goes in verse 11, John 15:11, he says, and if you read 15, there's more there than I can capture in a couple of minutes, but he says, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. So Christ, he spoke to us about being in the vine and bearing much fruit because of that, and how he loves us so that we could have joy in our heart, and that his joy could be us and our joy could be full. Joy doesn't depend on circumstances because it rests in God's sovereign control of all things. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. So we know that all things are going to work together, and we can have joy in our hearts. So that inner rejoicing that was promised to those who abide in Christ. That's what joy is. So we have that inner rejoicing because of the things that Jesus wrote to us, that he loves us, and if we abide in him, we can bear much fruit. And because we know that all things are going to work together for our good because we love him. Now, peace is it's also a gift of Christ. John 14:27 says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Peace is an inner repose and quietness, even in the face of adverse circumstances, and it defies human understanding. We really can't understand why, in the face of adverse circumstances, that if we're in Christ and we depend on him, other people, the world, they don't understand how we can have that peace. Philippians 4:7 says, as the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So, and it's an inner peace is an inner quietness, an inner repose that we get in the face of adverse circumstances. Some of the examples of that would be when I think about Paul and Barnabas and Paul and Silas when they were in prison, and it says at midnight they were singing, different times they were imprisoned, and they weren't worried about it. When Paul was in prison and he knew that he was eventually going to be put to death for his belief in Christ and for preaching the gospel, and he wrote, to live as Christ, but to die as gain. And he knew that he had nothing to worry about because he had hope in Jesus. And these are gifts that God gives us so that people who see us, who are not Christians, can see the joy and the peace and the love that are in us. And because of that, maybe they'll want what it is that we have in Christ. So let those things be in you. They're gifts from God. There's nothing you can do to earn them or build them in yourself. Pray and ask God to give you love, joy, peace, and those things will be a witness to others. So be a light in a dark world. Bless others today and have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.